morning, cartoon lovers of the interwebs. I'm Alexa, resident ooky spooky girly, and lover of so many warped cartoony things, we'd be here all day if I listed them off, I swear. Granted, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When I was doing research for today, some of the theories I stumbled upon threw me for a loop and a half. But in the honor, I had to rep, one of my favorite villains. Question for you, what's your favorite dark theory? I'm not sure of mine, so help me make up my mind in the comments, and welcome to the top 5 dark cartoon theories too evil to ignore. Unlike this guy, we like him. Number 5, all the Rugrats are dead. So when it comes to this fan theory, it turns out all those adorable little ones on Rugrats were nothing more than the projections of a year old's psychological breakdown. Angelica is typically the character we all hated when we were younger, but in retrospect, she clearly has some pretty extreme neglect issues with her parents. Her mom is always on the phone with work, and her relationship with her dad is superficial at best. We all thought Angelica was just moody because of her age and spoiled upbringing, but here it's said that her attitude is actually due to the traumatic events of the Rugrats' deaths. The Rugrats were really a figment of Angelica's demonic and unimaginable imagination. Try saying that 5 times fast. Apparently Chucky died in 1986 along with his mother, that's why Chaz is a nervous wreck all the time. Tommy was born in 1988, but didn't make it past birth, which is why Stu is constantly in the basement making toys for the son who never had a chance to live. The DeVilles terminated a pregnancy in 1990, and Angelica couldn't figure out what the gender should be, so the twins were just sort of gender to be determined. As for all grown up, the teenage Angelica became addicted to various narcotics, which further aggravated her schizophrenia, bringing her back to her childhood and thus her creations she obsessed over. Because of the time lapse between the present and the last time she interacted with her creations, she made them older. Now, Angelica was apparently constantly taking hits of so she would never have to live without her creations, who were her only company. In a judgmental world, Angelica's mom actually passed away of a spicy spoon juice overdose in 1982, just after Angelica was born, and Drew in his depression married a gold-digging that Angelica idolized because she fooled herself into thinking it was her real mom, but always had a concept of her mom, Cynthia, and took a Barbie doll and made it after her mom's image, wearing an unwashed orange dress and having, messy hair, which is why she was so attached to it. Later in life, like I said, she followed her mom's footsteps with all those bad things, dying of overdose at age barely teens when All Grown Up was cancelled. The only Rugrat to not be fictional, however, was Dill. However, Angelica didn't know the difference between Dill and her creations, although Dill didn't follow her commands. After endless crying and a refusal to disappear like the others did when Angelica was angry with them, she took out her anger on him. And due to this, he sustained a brain hemorrhage, which resulted in a deformation. And as he grew up, his damage only became more evident, and by the time he was, made it to all grown up age, he lived as an outcast, being ridiculed for his weirdness. The immense guilt over this is what led Angelica to her, no snow and spicy spoon juice use, and uncreate the Rugrats briefly, until her experiences with hallucinogenics. On a pair-ship to find love, Chaz married a woman named Kira. He was actually going to marry a different woman named Coco, but she just wanted him for his money, who had a daughter named Kimmy that was torn from her because she was a no-snow addict. Now, Angelica imagined her from Kira's stories. Chaz lost his mind after the death of his wife and was in denial that she was ever a woman of the night. So upon to America, Chaz and Kira married, and she got her green card. It was actually a really happy and romantic story. Kira sadly continually struggled with addiction, but was apparently relatively happy with her life in Chaz. Susie was Angelica's only real friend, who entertained the thought of Angelica's creations, for, her sake. Angelica spent the last days of her life in the back of the school cafeteria, imagining friends around her and playing with the lives of her creations. Yeah, my brain hurts. Why did she imagine, little ones and not folks her own age? Well, since her relationship is mostly non-existent with her parents, the only time they show any kind of emotion towards her is when they're disciplining her, which to a neglected little one comes off as cruelty. She imagines them as, young, because she needs someone she can be an authority figure with, because that's the only relationship that Angelica understands. Yeah, my brain's spinning. Number 4, Ed, and Eddy all live in purgatory. These theories really have a way of turning innocent shows into eerie mysteries. Some theorists propose that these 3 misfits are stuck in purgatory. It's a haunting concept, suggesting that their afterlife is intertwined with their traumatic pasts. Rolf, the first to arrive in this eerie realm, brought his farm life with him, choosing to neglect the cattle to play with the other lost souls. Then there's Johnny, who befriended Rolf, and even in death, he's joined by his imaginary friend Plank as they wander aimlessly through the afterlife. Eddy, the schemer from New York, met his end when a swindling attempt went awry, drowning in the river, and even now he's still chasing the almighty dollar. The brother and sister, Sarah and Ed, came next, both escaping the chaos of World War II in their unique ways, but a car wreck in 1953 ended their lives. Naz, the flower power human of the late 60s, met a gruesome end at the hands of a serial lender. Trauma caused her to shut out family in the afterlife, giving her more time to party and flirt. Ed, the intellectual with controlling parents, met his his demise in a fiery explosion caused by a Bunsen burner. Kevin, the angry and cynical boy from a broken home, was sadly physically punished to death by his very bad father, and in the afterlife he changed his perception of his father but continued his bullying ways. Jimmy, the sickly, little one, died of leukemia, isolated in his room, neglected by the outside world. And then there are the Canker sisters, sent from hell to torment the neighborhood. Their demonic origins grant them supernatural abilities, making them feared by everyone, including the Eds. Hey, this purgatory theory adds quite the sinister layer to the quirky world of Ed, and Eddy, wouldn't you think? Number 3, Garfield Is Hallucinating. Oh, okay. Garfield is one of my favorite comic strips of all time, but in the fall of 1989, Jim Davis produced a series of Halloween-based strips about Garfield waking up to an abandoned house. When Garfield finally accepted that he was alone, he suddenly brought back to his owner John's house. Naturally, the storyline had several readers question the meaning behind these series of strips, and because of these strips' surreality regarding the Halloween story arc, it is commonly believed that Garfield had either died or that he's slowly starving to death, and that the entire strip is his dying dream. Look, this theory does make sense in some places. Throughout the strip, Garfield would often have dreams regarding food and would constantly beg John for his trademark dish, lasagna. So if Garfield's always begging for food and just wants to sleep, oh dear. Number 2, Ash Ketchum has been in a coma since the first episode. So Pokemon is still airing new episodes all the time and follows the adventures of, Ash Ketchum and Pikachu! I don't know a lot about Pokemon, so we're gonna try our best here. Despite over 20 years though of adventures, Ash never really gets much older, and he somehow keeps discovering more and more and more new Pokemon that the world didn't know about in earlier seasons. And that's because those new Pokemon at the time didn't exist. This theory even explains some of the peculiarities of the Pokemon world, such as the consistent presence of certain characters like Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny. So for example, in the very first episode, Ash and Pikachu are attacked by a flock of Spearows in a thunderstorm when, Pikachu blasts everything in the area with a massive jolt of electricity, with Ash at ground zero of said attack. But then he walks off into the sunset like he didn't just sustain a, near lethal electrocution. Or so we all thought apparently. The analysis of Ash's companions and rivals as aspects of himself is a unique interpretation. From Brock representing his repressed sexuality to Gary Oak as a wish fulfillment figure, it offers a fresh perspective on the relationships and character dynamics within the series. The theory also delves into the symbolism of the Pokemons themselves, with each of Ash's Pokemons representing different aspects of his personality and struggles. It's an intriguing way to look at the creatures he befriends and, trains on his journey. Not only are Ash's Pokemon a manifestation of different parts of himself, the Pokemon of other trainers are as well. Koffing and Ekans were symbolic of Team Rocket's willingness to change, hence their evolutions. Once his mind was able to overcome that roadblock and allow them to change once, it gave him the chance to truly change. An interesting note is that Piputar is a rationalization, a Pokemon's rival caught before they met. Even Ash would become suspicious if everyone he met had no carryover Pokemon from previous places he had been to. Now, other trainers are more direct forms of his issues, ones he must either come to terms with or outright suppress. Gym leaders are more primary aspects of his personality, with each Pokemon being stronger than the last to display a level of skill he could only be capable of if he gave into it. In effect, every time he is doing battle with a part of him that he would rather not have in control. Originally, Ash had the battles, which evolved into team battles and contests, and the explanation for this is that his issues became more and more complicated, and the means of dealing with them needed to become more complex as well. The fact that he uses issues he has already dominated to win is a sign he's growing stronger. Ash releases his Pokemon because his mind is forcing him to, let go of them. The second he raises an overpowered team, a tournament comes up, and after fighting his way through it, he has to go to a new land for new challenges. However, with an overpowered team, there won't be any challenges or any way to motivate him further. The Ash that wants to stay in the coma and keep journeying hands his solved issues over to Professor Oak so he can continue and overcome the unresolved ones, which is, essentially his mind forcing him to deal with his issues. Ash's rivals in the Elite Four are ultimately the strongest part of this cycle. Having Pokemon that are essentially godlike, they represent both what can be attained and what is unattainable. Ash's rivals are all possible futures he envisions for himself, because they're all older than him. The theory's conclusion, where Ash awakens from his coma, either to face a world that has moved on without him or to continue his journey with a newfound determination, is kind of a poignant and thought-provoking scenario. It leaves us with the idea that sometimes our dreams and desires can become a powerful driving force in our lives. In the end, this theory kind of provides a unique and complex interpretation of the Pokemon series, turning it into a tale of self-discovery and growth within the confines of a dream world. Honestly, that kind of checks. Number 1, Cars overthrew mankind. It's not often that crazy fan theories are confirmed by higher-ups that are actually involved with the franchise. No matter how sound a conspiracy may be, it's often left up to fans to decide for themselves without any real answers. But in the case of the Cars movie and franchise, a disturbing theory was actually confirmed by the creative director himself, Jay Ward. So the theory goes that in the universe of Cars, we don't see humans because they simply don't exist anymore. When the Cars became sentient beings, they realized there was no need for humans and they them all. And to add insult to injury, Ward confirmed that the cars in fact take on the personality of the last person who drove them. So this seems to imply that the cars somehow literally consumed all of the people in the world and took on their personalities. So would this make them soul-sucking cars? Well, it doesn't get much worse than that. Hi, iRobot. You're looking pretty familiar right now. Also, when it comes to overall Disney curse things, does anybody remember the fly from The Emperor's New Groove? Just a little sidebar here. You know, the fly that gets killed by the spider while screaming, "Help me, help me"? Okay, well, did anybody notice how the only animals that can talk in the movie are the ones that were once human? That means that the spider ate a human. Oh, the more reason not to like the little creeps. And sadly, that's the end of our time, and who knows if I'll ever look at these cartoons the same way ever again. If you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you aren't already, hit the bell for more cursed cartoon content from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.